This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined by Shane McGUIGAN here today down at the University of Kent. How are you, Shane?
Good, thank you, mate. Yeah, in prep for Campbell versus Garcia, off the back of Okolie versus Jaszewski. So yeah, happy.
Jaszewski, but you didn't have much time to learn his name because he was out of there in a couple of rounds. Let's talk about Lawrence Okolie's performance before we move on and talk about other stuff. Very impressive in getting rid of Jaszewski in 2 rounds on the AJ PULEV undercard.
Yeah, he looked good, looked different. My magic. No, he looked good. I think he's been showing a lot of improvements in camp. Yeah, he's been trying to maintain the gap, maintain that distance, not smother his right hand, and I think it's shown. I think as you see him step up the level, I think he knows he needs to change his ways and get out of his old habits, and I think it's kind of turned the corner. So I'm really happy with it.
Must be nice to get some positive feedback on Lawrence. Not just necessarily talking about the time that you've spent with Lawrence, but we know about Lawrence's previous fights. He'll be the first to admit that the Matty Askin fight, the Isaac Chamberlain fights, were hardly Gatti Ward. But now he's kind of looking like he's putting together what you've been seeing in the gym over a period of about 18 months you've been together now. So it must be very pleasing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, he's never going to be a guy that's going to be blocking and countering and having those tit for tat sort of fights. But he needs to make sure he doesn't let people smother him, and then he also doesn't smother his own work. So he's aware of that. He's had lots of good preparation. Really frustrating that Glowacki wasn't in the other corner the other night, because I really feel like that Lawrence Okolie beats them all at 200 pounds. It's a bold statement, but I just do. I feel he's really getting to grips with it. He's still got plenty to learn. He still needs to work on certain shots, and still needs to bring his left hook into play a little bit more from a mechanical sort of standpoint. Sometimes he throws it a bit lazy, but no, his balance on his jab was a lot better, and yeah, I think it's you can't call him a novice. You can't. People always say that, and it frustrates me whenever I hear other professional fights. Oh, I've only had this amount of fights and that amount of fights. But he is still relatively fresh to the game, and there's still lots of learning to do. So physically, I'd say he's probably in the best shape of his life as well. He looked quite lean. He put a lot of weight on over lockdown, and it was. I thought it was going to be a struggle to get the weight off, but no, it fell off him. But on the scales, he looked really cut up, and was really disciplined for this one. So, yeah, excited about what the future holds for him. And I think he's an absolute handful.
Those are kind of the physical and obviously the technical improvements that we've seen in him. But talk to us a little bit about Lawrence Okolie's mentality. You mentioned there about Krzysztof Glowacki, world title fight, Anthony Joshua undercard. The fact that had to be pulled at such a last minute, more often than not, would be massively damaging to a fighter's psychological state going into the fight. It wasn't that for Lawrence Okolie. And, I've met Lawrence and I see Lawrence in the gym, but to other people who potentially don't know Lawrence, speak about his mentality and just what that says about him, not just that, but the time that you've worked with him.
Yeah, I think he handles things really well, and there's a few other things that went on behind closed doors that weren't what he would have liked. So he adjusted to it, and just sort of the being also in a bubble, being out of his comfort zone as well, and I think he just took it in his stride and just got on with it. And it's frustrating because he was out of the ring since October the 23rd, which was his last one, so over a year. And he waited that time to get on that AJ card, to get that world title fight, and whatever it was, 10 days out or something, or 8 days out, we heard the devastating news that Glowacki had been pulled, and got COVID. And also, he'd put a lot of money into the budget in for the sparring. He spent loads of money on bringing people over and getting that sort of southpaw style. And next thing you know, we're boxing a guy completely different. But he adapted to it really well. And I think those are certain things that having a mature sort of team around you as well can help, because it's boxing and these things happen all the time, and you just got to get on with it and deal with it.
Where does it leave him now? Of course, his next fight will be for the WBO cruiserweight title against Krzysztof Glowacki. Any indication as to when that could potentially land?
Yeah, I think we're looking at February. I mean, I'd like it as soon as possible, really. We got to see the extent of it's kind of like how people come back from COVID. It's kind of everyone's different, and Luke, it didn't really affect him at all. So sometimes it does. It sort of affects your lung capacity and stuff. So we'll see. But I think February, March could be a good indication of the dates that we're looking at.
Okay, and before we move on, let's talk about the main event on that card, Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev. Joshua wins by 9th round knockout. Quite an entertaining fight, I thought.
I thought it was entertaining. I thought he could have got him out of there a bit earlier. Was it the 3rd round he had him down? I thought it would have gone 4-6, and I thought AJ would be quite cautious early, and then start, once he got to him, sort of go through the gears, and that wasn't necessarily the case. He had a good round in the 3rd, and then he sort of switched off a lot and let him back into the fight a little bit, which I just don't think he should be doing at this stage of his career. He should be, if you got a guy hurt, you should, I hope that the Andy Ruiz fight hasn't knocked his confidence in terms of like going through the gears and finishing, because that's something that's always made him a huge force, and he sort of looks like he's caught between styles, and that's never a good sign. Looking at Tyson Fury, he's really coming into his own with Sugar Hill. He's looking like a real, like he's really like assured of his style, and he's sort of mauling people a little bit more, but he's getting his feet going, and he's looking really good, and he's looking really confident within himself, and kind of does look like AJ's like, it's good for him to get that knockout, but he needs to in my opinion, he needs to go back to being a little bit tighter with his hand defenses, because he doesn't have that vision that those elusive fighters have. You know what I mean? And something that makes him such a big force is that he can generate power on any plane, and like being loose and languid like that sometimes will take away from that punching power. So I just think, for him to beat Fury, he needs to work on slipping, closing the gap, punching in combination, and just being ruthless. So I thought good performance, picked out some lovely shots, used his height well, but he's trying too many things out, and whether that's just him getting back into the flow, then that so be it. But I feel like he works better when he's a little bit tighter with his hand defenses, and he's punching in combination, and he's ruthless, because that's what makes him such a phenomenal force.
Let's just touch upon that, because a lot of the talk after the fight, or even in the build-up to the fight, was about what type of AJ we were going to see, and what style, particularly after the Ruiz rematch, were we going to see in this fight. How much do you think of it is, the word that's been kind of thrown around is evolution of AJ, or how much do you think is it him potentially still the effects of the Ruiz rematch? And also, you mentioned the 3rd round against Kubrat Pulev. How much of that was him taking his foot off the gas, or how much of that was him potentially blowing himself out a little bit in the 3rd round and being wary of gassing?
Yeah, look, that was a lot of questions, but yeah, I think he's definitely aware of getting too greedy with his shots, throwing too many combinations, and sort of being, and sort of getting caught like he did against Andy Ruiz. So yeah, I understand that process, but for him to be a back foot boxer against a boxer's never going to work. If it comes down to a jabbing and foot fest against footwork fest against Tyson Fury, he's going to come up second best. Do you know what I mean? Like, the natural fighter of the two is Fury. So he needs to he needs to be able to work on closing the gap, staying tight with his hands. He might have to block, might have to take a few shots to get himself inside, but once he's in there, he needs to be able to throw combination after combination, and that's going to be the style. If you try and sit back and throw big singles like Deontay Wilder did, you're not going to beat Fury. So, I think he's got so much pressure on his shoulders. He's got so many people, expecting from him. He's got an entourage of about 60 people, so he's got a lot on his shoulders. He's got Sky TV and box office that are all there. He's got loads of fans. Same goes for Fury, but I feel like Fury is just a little bit more in his own mindset. He's like, do you know what? Fuck it. That's just who I am. I'll do my best, or and doesn't really overanalyze things. And it looks a little bit from the outside like he's overanalyzing a little bit, and that's a bad position to put yourself in. Trust the process, trust the decision making, trust the coach, and that's another thing. I know he's got 3 pad men at the moment, and that sometimes that can be a contrasting thing. I think obviously Rob McCracken's the main voice, so put your faith in him and listen to him, and make sure those other 2 guys are on the same page.
Now, you've always picked Anthony Joshua when we've asked about Joshua versus Fury. Did anything that you saw the other night change your mind, or does it depend on the style, so to speak?
If the Anthony Joshua that boxed the other night boxes Tyson Fury, I think Tyson Fury beats him. If the AJ that boxed earlier on against what was his name? The tall South African, not Molina. The fight afterwards, Dominic Brazil. I feel like if that guy gets in there, I think he beats it. So, I just off you're only as good as the last fight, and off the last fight, so I'm changing my mind. I'm going to go to Tyson Fury.
Changing your mind, a Boxing Social exclusive indeed. Yeah. Moving on, we saw him in the gym today. I've seen him an awful lot recently, but we haven't seen him in the ring yet. Luke Campbell against Ryan Garcia. We're a matter of weeks away. Excited?
Yeah, really excited. He's doing really well. He's got Dalton Smith down here sparring, who's a really talented kid. He's got Adam Azim as well, who's an 18-year-old, very hot prospect, 1-0, real super fast kids. Do you know what I mean? And 2 of them are coming in fresh. So this is the worst week possible, because it's the most amount of rounds you're going to be doing in sparring, and your body's starting to bring its weight down, and all of those weeks training previously are lumped into this one. So you're feeling a bit fatigued and stuff. So get this week out of the way, and then we're going to do one more spar here, and then we'll fly to the States. So it's kind of come around quite quick, to be honest. Obviously December the 5th got rescheduled to January the 2nd, and Luke just sort of obviously had a few weeks out with COVID and stuff, and I think it was 2.5 weeks or something, but did lose a little bit of his fitness, but it's all back now, and he's I think the delays actually helped him a little bit, to be honest, and also for our own prep with Lawrence and stuff, it was always going to be quite a strange one, because going out to the States, and then he would have potentially had to gone out a week earlier with Josh. I'd have missed a few days training him, and then come out. So it's all weirdly worked out for the better. But he's in a really good mindset. He's in a really good place, and we don't know how good Ryan Garcia is yet. But I feel like people also don't understand how good Luke Campbell is. I don't think he's shown his true potential yet.
We've heard Ryan Garcia the last probably couple of weeks in particular really start to ratchet it up a little bit when it comes to the trash talking. Now, I know from the look on your face that you would have certainly heard that. What do you make of his recent comments?
I just feel like he's a guy being filled with a lot of shite, to be honest. a lot of people are in his ear, and he really believes his own hype. Listen, he's a talented kid. He's got fast hands. He's got good timing to go with the speed. We know how sort of devastating his punching power can be, but he's been boxing at such a low level. In England, there's southern area sort of level, and then there's domestic level, and then there's European, and then there's fringe world level, and then there would be world championship status, and then there's the elite level. And the elite level is the Canelos, the Lomachenkos, and even Linares was a 3-weight world champion. He would have been considered an elite world champion. And, you know, Ryan Garcia has been boxing nobody. He's been boxing guys that are blowing up featherweights, walking into him, and he's just been taking them out. There's not one guy that Ryan Garcia has knocked out that Luke Campbell wouldn't knock out, you know, and do it in exactly the same fashion. Whereas if you put Ryan Garcia in against even a durable Yvonne Mendy, do I think he would knock him out? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, Yvonne Mendy went 10 rounds or 12 rounds with Victor Postel at light welterweight early on in his career. You know, he's a hard lad. And, you know, I think the sort of caliber that Luke has boxed at is, even though Argenis Mendez, you know, former world champions like Darlise Perez and stuff like that, like, you know, Luke's been boxing these guys that are former world champions, and, you know, and he's been picking them off and winning. So Ryan Garcia's boxed nobody. You know, he looks the part for sure. We don't know how good he is. He could surprise everybody and be an absolute standout. But to date, he's just been boxing guys that are far, you know, like far too small for him. Starters, they're blowing up featherweights, and he's taken them out. So you can't really read into a lot of that sort of stuff. It's going to be a really dangerous fight early, and he's really believing his own hype, and I love that from a coach. I love the fact that he's believing his own hype, and he goes and fills himself with all this confidence, because once those 4 or 5 rounds are done and he's hitting fresh air, then he'll be in a real hard place, you know. And he thinks that Luke's got patty punches. We'll see, because Luke can really thump, you know. So he might be in for a big shock.
I know you well enough to know that you'll also be looking forward to pitting your wits against Eddie Reynoso, who I know you have an awful lot of respect for.
Yeah, definitely. But Eddie Reynoso's got a huge fight this weekend that might have, you know, taken a lot of his attention. You know, do I think they've done their homework? I'm not sure if they've done their homework on Luke Campbell. I mean, it's quite easy to chuck into YouTube and see the first Yvonne Mendy fight and think, well, look, he's getting pushed back, he's getting hit, he's been dropped. Like, but the second one's not on it, you know. And, you know, there's highlights of Linares, and there's like, you can go on Daily Motion and you can see the full fight. But if you're ignorant to the process, you'll look at that and think, oh, well, Linares dropped him. Fucking, you know, Ryan Garcia is a harder puncher than Linares, so if he hit him with that same shot, bang, he's out. You know, but what did Luke Campbell do when he got up from Linares? He got up and fought back, and arguably could have won the fight if it had been in the UK. You know, I think it was a 6-6, but then the knockdown favoured Linares. But, you know, some people thought it could have been 7-5 with Luke, but obviously with a knockdown. So, you know, it's a very close fight, and that was a prime Linares, a guy with full of confidence and firing on all cylinders. So, I'm not sure Eddie Reynoso has really put his full focus into Ryan Garcia, and if that's the case, then they've bit off more than they can chew.
Well, as you mentioned, he does have a pretty big fight coming up this weekend, Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith. Again, another fight that's kind of crept up on us. It's only been announced a few weeks ago. What are your thoughts on the fight this Saturday in Texas?
It's an intriguing fight. I think the size is huge. It's not the first time that Canelo's been up against it with size. Obviously, Kovalev and then Rocky Fielding as well. But Rocky Fielding got disposed in what was it, 1 or 2 rounds? Yeah, I think it was a round by Callum, and then and obviously Canelo took him 3 rounds or 4 rounds or something. So yeah, he wasn't much of a test for either of them. But he looked good against Kovalev, but Kovalev was a little bit shot worn. You know, he had a lot of hard fights. It's no secret that he likes his alcohol as well, and you know. Were we seeing the Sergei Kovalev that came over here and knocked out Nathan Cleverly in a handful of rounds? Do you know what I mean? No, that guy was long gone. So and Anthony Yarde sort of proved that, you know, that he wasn't his old force whenever he boxed him. So Callum Smith is going to pose a lot more problems because he's in his prime. He's been in, you know, he hasn't boxed since what, was it June? No, so hasn't boxed since Ryder. When was that? November? I think it was November the 20th, yeah, late November, because Chris was on that card. And didn't look too good in it. Yeah, he didn't look very good against Ryder. So, but he's the kind of guy that steps up to the occasion and boxes, you know, like Nicky Holston the fight before George, and then against George he looked much better. So, you know, when he's put under the pressure, he performs, and you know, I think he'll cause a lot of problems for Canelo early on, but I think Canelo might hit him with some decent body shots early, slow him down, and I think he'll probably get to him in the second half, like 10 rounds maybe.
Lots been made of the size difference, the very obvious size difference. The two came face to face a couple of days ago for the first time. You've prepared, as you mentioned, George Groves to box Callum Smith. What is it like looking at Callum Smith when you come together in the middle of the ring for referees' instructions? Just how big is he on fight night?
He's huge. He's massive. I looked across the ring in Saudi and I was like, it looked like we were boxing a cruiserweight, like someone that Chris would box or Lawrence would box. He's massive because he's broad. But his height might actually be a detriment to him, because Canelo is so short that he might bring himself down to try and get down to his level. And Canelo's got such good head movement and pushes you back with his head movement. He sort of slips in, and he's got such a good chin that he's forcing you to throw. And you know, I don't know. I think the size difference, I'm not sure it will play that big of a part for Smith. Smith's good because he can box short as well, but his short is effectively someone's mid to long range. Do you know what I mean? Because he is so big. So it's an exciting fight. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope for Joe Gallagher, Eddie's, and Callum and Paul Reddy and all the team sake that Callum can stamp his authority early in the fight and get some form of respect, because you know he's a nice guy, Callum, and I wish him all the best.
Okay, well, before I let you go, let's have a little quick rundown of the rest of the McGUIGAN's gym stable. Just caught up with Chris Billam-Smith. Of course, we were supposed to see him box for the British title before Christmas. That didn't happen. What's the latest with him? Do we have any idea when he's going to return to the ring?
Yeah, we're looking at end of January, potentially early Feb. Scheduled to box Dion Juma, but Dion Juma, they said he had laser eye surgery, but I think we've been digging a bit deeper in it, and it looks like it's a retina tear and some retina damage. So, with that being said, I'm not sure if he's going to be fit to box early next year. So, yeah, I think we're actively looking at other opponents now. That's the latest. He's just sparred today. He's just done 6 rounds. So he's first week back in the gym. He's obviously. Next week we're away, but he'll keep himself ticking over, and then he'll hit the ground running on January the 4th when I'm back. So yeah, I need to get him active next year. You know, he's really looking better now. So he's obviously he had the one fight, which a lot of people haven't had fights in since lockdown. So he's been lucky to get out, but it wasn't much of a test against Nathan Thorley, and I think, you know, we did a camp for Dion Juma, and then 2 weeks out, we found out that he wasn't, he had an eye injury, and we couldn't find anybody of a late replacement. So domestically, I want him to still sort of stay at that domestic level, and then by the tail end of next year, I want him to sort of push on to European or even Tommy McCarthy's European champion. I believe he beats him, but not if he does box Tommy McCarthy and win. I wouldn't want him to push on straight up to world level yet. I want him to stay at that level and keep learning and keep building, because he only had 43 amateur fights, and that's not that's not a lot. So he's developing really quick, and keep him learning before we push on.
Anthony Fowler, I think this is one of the first times since you started working with Anthony Fowler I've come to the gym and he's not been here. Where is he? What's he up to, and what to expect next for him?
He's in Lanzarote or Lanzagrotte. Yeah, he's just taking a bit of time out. I mean, he booked a holiday thinking that we were going to go to the States. We were scheduled to be boxing in California, and then it just changed last minute. Thank you very much, Golden Boy. It was a bit of a frustration from our part, but it doesn't really matter anyway. At least we get a crowd, so it's going to be good for Luke, because for him, as he said a few times before, boxing in 20,000 packed out arena, that's the last time he's boxed, and now and then going into an empty arena would have been quite weird. So it's kind of worked out in his favour. But Fowler's gone out to Lanzarote, just doing a bit of tick-over training, and he's gone for a holiday with his missus, and he'll come back. Look, he's also looking at end of January, potentially early Feb. So we're looking at some options. Fitzgerald's apparently boxing in February, so we'll either have one and then go straight in, or maybe we just ask for that fight straight off the bat. If it was me, I'd rather him just jump straight into it, But with Fowler, I think we can get caught up hanging around domestic level, whereas I really want him just to crack on and box Sergio Garcia for the European title, and just and just take that step on, because hanging around for a guy that is playing with the game in Fitzgerald, I mean, he's a great character, seems like a nice guy, but his head's away with it, and you don't want to hold your career up trying to get revenge of a fight that was close, and he didn't perform his best.
And last, but of course by no means least, Alfie Price. Again, I can't remember the last time I come to the gym and Alfie Price wasn't here. He's been working very hard behind the closed doors with yourself. Same thing. Where is he? What's he doing? And when can we expect to see him again? Alfie's
got a scaffolding company, so he's working away this week. He's keeping his wages down by working himself. So understandable. I said, look, make some cash and stuff before Christmas and head off, mate. Do you know what I mean? He's done a lot of developing, as we said, behind closed doors. And Eddie and Frank Smith at Matchroom, they sort of said, look, there's nothing till the new year. We've got so many fighters that we need to get out. We'll have some word in the new year about some dates and stuff. So I want to get him a 3 or 4 fight contract with Matchroom, and sort of let him off the leash, really, because he's going to move down to super featherweight, and there's a lot of domestic fights there for him, and he knows he's willing to take the fights. He doesn't need to be fed opponents that he's more than capable of winning. He wants to jump in and box the top guys, and get straight stuck into the mix. So it's going to be an exciting 2021 for the gym.
You much prefer to work with fighters that way, though, don't you? You're not one for tick-overs, or you're not one for soft touches, are you?
No, that's right. I just, what's the point? Like, this is a short career. You may as well get yourself up to that top level as quick as possible, because that's going to change their life, and you can waste yourself away training in training camps, sparring, and I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that you get a lot of injuries and you get a lot of wear and tear on your body through the training camps. So you may as well make those training camps for something, and have that constant progression that you're going through and you're stepping up. I mean, Taylor was world champion in 14 fights, and because he was more than capable of doing it. He was a unified champion within 16 fights. you know, that was always our method to sort of push guys on. You know, and if they're able to do it, you should do it, because once you get them up to the top level, that's where the gravitas is. That's where the best part of boxing is. It's big fights, excitement, and that's what all of these guys get in the gym for. They don't get in the gym to box fucking journeyman after journeyman that they know that they can beat. You know, a lot of the guys come from the amateur setup where they're boxing Russians, Uzbeks, Cubans, you know, Americans and stuff, top quality kids, and then then they get in here and they're boxing guys with 40 losses, 50 losses, and they could literally close one eye and beat them, you know, and put one hand behind their back and win. It's like that's not going to progress them at all, and really it's just wasting their future. You look at, you know, Devin Haney, Javonte Davies. These guys are millionaires by the time they're 22, 23. You know, Devin Haney's even younger than that. So, you know, you've got to push on and get yourself up to that top level as quick as possible, because that's what this game's hard enough. You may as well put it towards, you know, making sure that you get to your destination faster than. Obviously, there's a line where, you know, like if you look at Conor Benn, like he had no amateur experience, so doing the right thing. You know, even someone like Scott Quigg, I remember he had like 24, 25 fights or something before he boxed for many titles, and because he had limited experience. So that's another way of doing it. But they both turned pro young. But if these guys are turning pro at 24, 25 years of age, they need to get there fast, because they don't want to be in their peak years boxing journeyman.
Okay, Shane, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me down to the lovely University of Kent. Shout out the University of Kent, as always. Big it up. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I won't see you before, so travel safely over to Texas, not California. Don't get on the wrong plane. And I will speak to you while you're out there.
Thanks, mate. You'll probably get an interview with me wearing a cowboy hat or something. Why not? Let's do it.
Look forward to it. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.